Hello, everyone, and welcome to the HUD OCIO Learning Session. I'm Dr. Melanie Cohen. Today, we're going to be discussing building an engaging workplace. The benefits of developing and sustaining an engaged workforce within federal agencies has been widely recognized. In fact, improving employee engagement features as a key objective of the People and Culture Cross-Agency Priority Goal of the President's Management Agenda. Research on employee engagement has consistently shown a link between engagement and employee attitudes, levels of turnover, employee productivity, and organizational performance. A fundamental question often asked is, how do we access the power of engagement in our workplaces? This HUD OCIO learning session will consider how employee engagement can be accessed and improved across government. The Office of Personnel Management's Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey shows that several unique factors support conditions for achieving an engaged workforce. Learn about what drives employee engagement and consider how leaders can leverage drivers to activate and realize the power of engagement in federal agencies. We are fortunate to have with us today Dr. Kim Wells and Ms. Julie Brill from the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. Let me introduce our panel, tell you a little bit about Kim and Julie, and then we'll begin our discussion. Today's panel includes Dr. Carlise Kelly, Provost of the Virtual University at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Thank you very much for being on our panel today. Dr. Kim Wells is the manager of the Survey Analysis Group, Office of Planning and Policy Analysis, U.S. Office of Personnel Management. She received her PhD in organizational behavior from Claremont Graduate University in California. Dr. Wells joined OPM as a research psychologist in 2004, where she has pursued her longstanding research and practice interests in organizational change for workplace effectiveness. Throughout her career, Dr. Wells has acted to bridge the interests of the policy, practice, and research communities. She has shared the results of her research widely to audiences of federal policymakers and practitioners, as well as in academic conference presentations and publications. Julie Brill is the manager of Work Life and Leadership and Executive Development Policy Office in Employee Services at the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. She has 20-plus years of private and public sector experience in human capital development and management. She has considerable experience in organizational development, career development, leadership development, competency development, and human capital metrics, as well as survey research and development, including organizational assessment and customer satisfaction. Julie has a bachelor's degree from Vassar College, a master's degree in clinical psychology from American University, and a master's degree in industrial organizational psychology from the City University of New York. So, Kim, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Melanie. I really appreciate the invitation and you involving me in this very exciting learning session, talking about a topic that I think has become incredibly important to the federal government. Of course, engagement has captured the imagination of leaders across different sectors, and that's largely because of the research that shows just how important employee engagement is to organizational effectiveness. In an engaging work environment, an employee can reach his or her own potential, which of course directly impacts the agency's ability to be able to achieve their priorities and goals. But of course, the chief question, as I think you also alluded to, is exactly how do we go about achieving engagement? What is it that we can do to activate, build, and sustain employee engagement in our federal agencies? And in an effort to better understand engagement and to identify drivers of engagement, we at the U.S. Office of Personnel Management have conducted a number of years of research, and it's highlights from that research that I want to share with you all here today. Of course, my team, Survey Analysis, as you said, we administer the Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey, and it's data from that survey that I'm going to be drawing on today. And just as a background, I'm sure most of you in the audience know, but the Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey is an annual survey that we administer to permanent employees of the federal executive branch agencies. And our survey captures employee perspectives on their workplaces. And decades-long research in my field in organizational psychology really do show a link between employee perceptions and drivers of overall organizational effectiveness. And the FEV's results provide leadership with some really important information about what's worked in their agencies and where improvements might still be needed. And we can use the information that we get from the EVS to drive effective action planning around key topics like employee engagement. And that's what I want to talk about.
Great.
So, that's it. So if we look at this slide, one of the very first topics to consider, of course, is what do we mean when we talk about employee engagement? For anybody who's done any perusing on the internet to see, there are just a number of definitions that are given for employee engagement. Some of them look at the emotional aspect. We at the U.S. Office of Personnel Management have developed the definition that you see at the top of this slide. It emphasizes the relationship between the employee and their work and the employee and their workplace. The Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey includes an index that assesses the engagement potential of the workplace, and we look at measuring the conditions to engage employees, and that's what you're seeing components of right here. If you look to the right of the slide, you can see for the entire Employee Engagement Index, we've seen an increase in employee engagement across the federal government of 1 percentage point between 2014 and 2015. Now, there are a number of factors that are included in the engagement conditions, and you can see those sub-factors are something that we measure as part of the index. A number of the items on our survey clustered together, for example, and one important sub-factor, which is leaders lead. And that just reflects employee perceptions of leadership. If some of the items in this are going to focus on the integrity and honesty of leadership, how good of a job we think they're doing, respect for leaders, trust for leaders, how well leaders are able to communicate with employees and communicate those goals for their agencies. Now, historically, this has been the lowest scoring of the sub-factors, and you can see that we've increased by 1%. We're still at 51%. Remember, this is government-wide. The next sub-factor looks at supervisors, and supervisors describes the interpersonal relationship between employees and their supervisors. Items capture things like perceptions of how well the employee thinks the supervisor is doing. It looks at how well supervisors support employee development, how well we listen to employees, the level of respect employees perceive from their supervisors, and also the trust and confidence that we have in our supervisors. This is historically the highest scoring. You can see at 71%, it stayed stable between 2014 and 2015, and that's that middle light blue panel that you're looking at on this slide. Intrinsic work experience is the last sub-factor, and what that captures is employee perceptions about their work, how well they understand what's expected of them on the job, how well they know whether or not their work relates to agency goals, how well their talents are used, whether or not they're encouraged to come up with new and better ways of doing things, et cetera. And again, that's increased by 1% up to 69%. So how engaging are our federal workplaces? And you can see in this slide over the years, the answer really basically sort of depends on the size of the organization. What you're looking at on this slide, it's a little bit complicated, so just take it in here for a minute. Look specifically first at the black line, which is next to the bottom line. What that gives you is your overall government-wide engagement scores starting from 2010 going through 2015. And you can see that during the period of sequestration, certainly engagement scores did drop, but we are seeing an increase over the last year that we measured. You can see, too, that black line is heavily influenced by the very large agencies in our sample of over 100,000 employees. You can see that those scores are the lowest. For employees who work in small and medium-sized organizations, you can see the green and purple lines at the top. Engagement scores are substantially higher and have maintained that way. So I think this is something that's really interesting to sort of speculate about why we might be seeing some of these changes or some of the differences. Certainly we can think a little bit about that leaders lead. Remember some of the things that it measures, that sub-factor. Thinking about also in those larger agencies, I'm not sure exactly how an employee might really arrive at their perceptions about how leaders are doing in their jobs when they're talking about senior leadership, because lots of times there's so many layers in between.
You know, interestingly, if we go back to the slide before, which talks about leaders leading, supervisors, and intrinsic work experience. So the supervisor, I think we know from research and literature and a variety of other things that the most important relationship in an organization is the person and their immediate supervisor. Sure. And usually if that's okay, then, and it looks like 71% is pretty good, and at least it's steady. That's a good sign. But then when you get to leaders lead, there's, you know, as we're thinking through this, there's a kind of a little ambiguity between who are the leaders people are evaluating, because it leaves it up to, it's very subjective on the part of the person taking the survey, as depending on where they are in the organization, as to who they think their leaders are. They know who their immediate supervisor is, but there could be a little bit of I think ambiguity up to, you know, who the leaders are. So that could also impact some of the total overall scores also.
Exactly.
Don't you think?
The other thing is 2 of the items in Leaders Lead deal with trust. And so in larger departments, there's a lot more layers between an employee and those very senior leaders.
Right.
Because all they get is the decision made by those senior leaders. And they don't get all of the information that went into it because they're so distant from it. So that distance helps contribute to it, as well as communication as an item, you know, managers communicating, leaders communicating to employees. And when you have those multiple layers in the larger departments, it's harder to get that communication, and there are many more points where that communication can break down.
Right, right. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
USDA is one of those large agencies. We have about 87,000 employees, and we're very geographically dispersed. We have employees in almost every county, and we have employees all around the world. So that creates an additional challenge in terms of that layering in the distance. And we have implemented several strategies to try to help leaders sort of bridge that gap. One of the things we've done is to ask them to become involved in listening sessions. So they hear from employees, they learn what's important to employees, and they can take actions. But without that, I think that all the factors that we just talked about really come into play. So you have to implement strategies to overcome those kind of things to help leaders, employees and leaders connect better.
Let's see, where were we? So, over the past few years, of course, agencies and government have been urged to take action in response to their employee viewpoint scores to improve and sustain employee engagement. And as I alluded to before, really the focus in this improvement on engagement really does stem from the fact that a lot of research shows that there's an important link between employee engagement and effectiveness at many different levels within an agency. For example, at the individual level, employee engagement has been linked with measures of well-being, employee well-being. If we think about the work unit, an employee that is more apt to really engage in a lot of discretionary effort, as engaged employees are, that generally is going to have a nice spillover effect with their colleagues and help out the entire work unit. And so in that way, we benefit too. Thirdly, of course, engagement has been shown to provide advantages at the agency-wide level. And the example that I'm showing you here actually does link employee engagement with employee retention. You can see on this slide and the scores that those employees who intend to remain with their agencies are higher scoring on employee engagement at 72% to the left on that bar. And those employees who are expressing an intention to leave are at 47% on their engagement scores. Now think about this in the context of return on investment. It's very expensive. If we think about research from the Society for Human Resource Management, shows that the replacement costs, the direct replacement costs for an employee go anywhere between 90 and 200% of that employee's salary. So if you're losing a lot of employees or very high level employees, that can get very expensive. Those are just the direct expenses, though. If we think about the more indirect costs, things that actually maybe have longer range negative consequences are losing those people at peak performance, perhaps, and all that institutional knowledge. That's something to consider.
But before you go to the next slide, when it says intend to leave, so that would be intending to leave their agency, or okay, so because they're going to another agency, perhaps, or because they're retiring, or is that just a combined score of everything?
This does not include retirement. These are people who are either quitting to go to another agency or leaving the federal government altogether.
Oh, okay.
So these are true quits.
Okay.
Not retirements.
Okay.
We've excluded
Could that
retirements.
actually, do you have other information that we're not showing here, but do you have it where it breaks out if leaving the government completely?
Yes.
Okay, and I don't know if you know that off the top of your head, but
I don't.
But that's fine. But it's interesting to know, or to think about, because we're thinking about, ways to make sure that we're able to keep the best people in the government.
Absolutely.
So I think the idea would be figuring out who's leaving to leave the public sector, where they are on the generational scales, and then figuring out ways to be able to retain them and some kind of strategies for that. Because I think what we all want is to have, the best people in the public sector going forward.
Absolutely.
And so, however we can figure out how to make sure we can retain that, I think is probably the key. But even 40% seems kind of high to me. I mean, that seems like a lot of people.
Well, that's their engagement score, right? So that means that the engagement score is below 50% for these people who are intending to leave.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what that tells me, though, is the fact that they're thinking about leaving. They haven't actually left, but they're not engaged in what they're doing now.
Exactly.
And I think that's an issue too.
So,
right?
Well, sure. I mean, it brings up the big issue of, are they going to be being retired in place because they're not engaged and really not engaging in discretionary effort and really putting their best effort forward, or do they actually leave? I mean, there's two different ways of leaving, right?
Right. Unfortunately, yes, there are two different ways.
So, anything else? Okay, then if we could go to the next slide. So the Employee Viewpoint Survey, of course, includes a number of demographic items that let us also think a little bit about engagement as it relates to different groupings of employees. And this is great information to have, too, because this also helps us to target our actions and to think about, where we need to take action. And what you're seeing on this slide particularly is just age groupings shown on the Employee Viewpoint Survey and engagement scores. And you can see to the left are the youngest of our employees, and to the right are our oldest. They both have the highest engagement scores, percent positive engagement scores. Where you're seeing the dip is in those mid-career people, and it's one of the reasons that I mentioned before. You need to start thinking about the long-range, negative consequences if we're losing these people at their peak of their talents and skills, institutional knowledge, because they're not engaged. If we think about this within that framework, I think that raises some interesting questions.
I know when I think about the mid-career people, I think one of the things of impacts of sequestration has been as people retire and leave, there's been restructuring, and that means opportunities have disappeared for advancement. And what we're trying to get people to think about at that level, and we hope that it will help keep them engaged, is to think about opportunities to develop in a way that broadens their experience. So in the past, they may have looked for the next promotion, but it may have disappeared. Don't get discouraged. Look for a lateral move that will allow you, say, to develop in a business acumen way, or to develop in a way where you're building coalitions. And through those opportunities, you are developing yourself and preparing yourself for the more limited promotion opportunities.
The other piece that's a factor, and I know you're going to touch on it later in terms of the drivers, is in that mid-career, you have individuals who have a lot of life demands that are impacting they're handling with work. So work-life balance becomes so much more important in that mid-career because they have either elder parents and perhaps children. They're dealing with a lot more than people at the beginning and the two ends of the chart. So that's a piece of it I know as you're going to talk about in your drivers. So something to consider.
I never thought about that, but that's really a fascinating point. And because I was looking at it too, and I was thinking, the youngest people are new into their career, so they're pretty excited.
Right.
You know, I mean, I certainly remember when I was young in my career, I was pretty excited to get started and looking for all kinds of different things to be able to do. And I also think now the people who are 60 and over, maybe they are sort of rejuvenated in their careers because they want to go out on top with some big success. And I think that happens a lot too to people. You know, there's so much in all of this
There
that you
really
can
is.
begin
It really
thinking
is.
about
Really
and wonder.
speculate.
But you know, the beauty of it is once you understand the numbers, or once you see the numbers, you can begin to develop, I think, some kind of strategies to work through that and kind of figure out, you know, specific strategies. It's hard for an entire department, but I think each organization as a whole, small teams and units, can look at their scores and then develop strategies for that.
And then just one other thing just to take into account here too, you know, we see the same curvilinear relationship with agency tenure. And so the people who've been with their agencies for the least period of time, and so that usually does correspond with younger employees, tend to be the more engaged. And so I guess the question, I have two questions, and I don't have answers for this, just questions. But but first would be, is it just the natural factor of millennials just more inclined by personality traits, whatever, to be engaged, more engaged? And I've seen some pieces around that. Or is it that something in our workplaces tend to actively work against engagement? So as an employee has been there a little bit longer, a little bit older, maybe a little bit wiser, that's just an interesting question. If it's something that we could actually, you know, if it's just a factor of an age cohort, well, you know, then we'll see engagement scores come up as these people get into their mid-career too. But if it's a factor of something that's going on within the agencies, I think that as leaders, that's important for us all to consider. So, and then just to round out the discussion on, in this case, generational cohort, we see exactly the same that I just showed you, which is that the millennials, those younger employees that are age 35 and younger, is one estimate at least, have the highest engagement scores. Well, actually a little bit higher, of course, than those traditionalists, but we still see that sort of peaking at both ends. Where we're seeing engagement scores actually increase, if you look at that last column in the slide, you can see that millennials actually have increased their engagement scores as a cohort and between 2014 and 2015, and that's something interesting too to speculate about. But that's all I have is speculation about that.
Which is very important in terms of looking at EBS scores. Is you can speculate, but you really need to explore
Right.
to understand. And your point about smaller organizations really understanding their individuals and their mission and their work is really where that change is going to be more impactful. Because an
absolutely.
agency, you know, as large as some of these departments, if they is one size fits all isn't going to help. It's really understanding what are the things that are bringing about the data
Right.
and the numbers.
Absolutely, because it's the same idea as one small step. I mean, you can't tackle the whole of the Department of Homeland Security in one swoop.
Right.
You'd have to do it
Right.
office by office, bureau by bureau, and each of those would demand different solutions because every group would be different.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, what this really tells us is there's so much more research that needs to be done.
Absolutely.
You know, more focused, I guess, more focused research to try to figure out if people are leaving the government, particularly millennials, if millennials are leaving, where are they going, and are they eventually coming back? You know, because maybe they come back in mid-career. You know, there could be, it's a different time now where people are coming in and out of public service, the private sector, nonprofit, because you want to have more of that rounded portfolio of experiences. So, so it's a little bit different. I don't think any kind of research like that's being done quite yet, but it would be interesting to explore that. You know, and you're right, it's all speculation because we don't have the depth of the research to understand that.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I would say this is very encouraging for me to see. Millennials are very important to us. We see them, they're very important today, but they're also important to the future of success of our agency. And so to dig in and try to find out what really is important to them, what really is driving them from an engagement perspective, we are doing some listening sessions specifically with millennials. So we can find out more. We're actually engaged in that right now. I don't have any results to report to you, but focusing on them as a particular group, I think is that's something that we're really interested in.
And the other thing is, in 2 years, the next generation is coming into the real workforce. I mean, I think right now they're in the like the babysitting workforce, but they're going to be in the real workforce, in the military in 2 years. Right, so born at 2000 and after. So it'll be interesting to begin to explore that also, because then we'll have yet another generation to begin to, to begin to look at.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so it looks like from everything that I've reviewed so far, mostly it's just been an effort to show you that engagement's important, and to kind of start thinking a little bit about, what it is that engagement looks like within our agencies. But so the question then becomes, what steps can we take as leaders? How do we really leverage this really important thing called employee engagement? And also, how do we know that our actions are actually going to influence engagement in the end? There's a lot of work that's been done within agencies over the last few years, but what is it that we can do to make sure that our actions are really going to pay off in the end? And that is where this important topic of key drivers come in, engagement drivers. If you search on Google, you're going to see that there are just a number of studies that have been conducted really to identify factors in the work environment that might drive and improve engagement. And we at OPM have undertaken similar research to identify what aspects of our federal workplaces are actually going to be able to influence conditions for engaging employees. And what we did is we began our research. And we were gratified to find some of the things that are really part of just excellence in management really are drivers in a number of the other research projects that we've seen. Things around, that are important to management, like training and development and employee feedback, all part of performance management. Work-life support of an employee's needs to address their responsibilities both within and outside of the workplace. Those are important. And then also a whole host of management practices around communication and collaboration and team building. These are also very important, and according to the research. And what we did is we mapped all of these important topics onto our employee viewpoint survey to identify items that would help us to be able to assess that. And we did some analysis to make sure that those items were really hanging together around key topics, and then looked at how they related to our conditions to engage employees. And we found some really interesting things. So these are the 5 key drivers that our research showed us for the Employee Engagement Index overall. And each driver is comprised of a number of survey items. And what you're seeing is a list of those drivers here on this slide, and they're shown in order of importance. So that means if you really want to attack employee engagement, you might want to start with performance feedback. That doesn't mean that work-life balance isn't important. You're going to want to dig into each of the items within your within the different composites to see if there are any particularly low-scoring items. Okay, and just to kind of describe to you exactly what this means, each one of these labels we developed with an eye towards being very explanatory and descriptive. I think performance feedback goes without saying, that's part of performance management, and it really does emphasize the need for ongoing feedback to employees about their performance to make sure they know that they're reaching their goals. Collaborative management really speaks to the importance of a management style that promotes and supports collaborative communication, for example, and then teamwork in accomplishing goals and priorities. And merit system principles serve to ensure that federal personnel management practices support fairness and also protect employees from arbitrary actions, making sure that all of our personnel practices are above board and equitable, and that employees are are free from personal favoritism or any sort of coercion or reprisals. And then again, critical to effective performance management, that training and development arena driver focuses attention on the need to really target opportunities for employees to both improve their skills and then also to enhance their own professional development and make sure that we're assessing their training needs too. And then finally, work-life balance highlights again the importance of the supervisor's support of an employee's need to balance their work and life priorities. And we completed initial testing looking at these across the years. From 2013 to 2015, they all five held stable and in the same priorities. Sometimes within individual agencies, we looked at a couple of agencies as a test, and we found that they may order a little differently, different magnitude of importance, but these 5 drivers all held very stable. Also, as you can see on the slide, across different aspects, different groups of employees across generations and supervisory status, for example. Telework, I was very happy to see that telework is high.
Now,
So-
can we go back to this for just a minute
Sure.
or talk about this for 1 minute? So the performance feedback, you can understand how that could be the number one thing there. But what I find interesting there is it's often a one-way communication between the supervisor and the employee. It's not always the employee doing a 180 and evaluating the leadership capabilities of the supervisor. You know, so that may be something that agencies may think of or are doing at other places to kind of make that a little bit more rounded. You know, it might not necessarily be the entire 360, but it can at least be a 180 in terms of doing that in the opposite.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, Melanie. There is a new executive order on SES reform. And one of the things in that executive order, agencies are will be required to have 360 assessments of executives. And this is something we did at USDA. We started doing this a couple of years ago in the spirit of employee engagement. We wanted employees to know that their opinion was valued, that it was important, and that our executives are using their feedback to help them grow and develop. So I think the point you made is right on.
Right, and that requirement for executives, and unfortunately it's only for executives, would be great if it went broader to all leaders, but they have to have an assessment at least every 3 years, and it must include employee feedback. So to your point, if it doesn't have the full 360 of customer and peer, that doesn't have to be part of it, but that employee feedback has to be part of that assessment. So it's a good positive step forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
So what we're seeing in this next one, we also looked at to see if there were different drivers for, remember those sub-factors, those 3 sub-factors. And of course, because they each describe a different aspect of the conditions in a workplace to engage employees, it's not really surprising to see that each one has a different set of drivers. Where we do see a little bit of overlap is between leaders lead and the intrinsic work experience, the first and last of those panels. We can see that collaborative management and merit system principles drivers are both important in both the leaders lead and the intrinsic work experience. The others are fairly unique, and in fact we had 3 drivers that we researched initially that didn't come out across the entire index but show through here. For example, we see that performance recognition and reward predicts leaders lead. That's not surprising. The top leaders hold the purse strings, so rewards, I mean, that makes sense, that works. And then for the intrinsic work experience, that last panel, job resources emphasize the importance of really removing barriers to engagement, especially providing resources, information, and making sure that employee workloads are reasonable. And then performance rating highlights the importance of evaluating employee performance to achieve results. And so you can see, so I think it's very interesting that we have a number of distinct drivers here too. And again, that gives you real action points to leaders as we're trying to improve employee engagement and support it in our agencies. So just a quick couple of examples here. I just wanted to show you sort of what you would see. There's a lot more material that's going to be coming out about this, but let's assume that you want to influence employee engagement by really focusing on an intrinsic work experience. Now remember, there's 5 different drivers for that, and I just sort of randomly picked training and development. Not so random, because actually the 2 items fit on this slide pretty well. The others have 5 and 6 items, it's too many. So you can see that for training and development, you've got a couple of items here, a couple of, that means survey questions. Given a real opportunity to improve my skills in my organization, that's important. And that's really concrete, right? I mean, it gives you something really to be able to hold on to. And my training needs are assessed. Again, very concrete. That tells you, it gives you a roadmap, what you need to do. Not exactly what you need to do, but it gives you a really good sense. And in a series of workshops that Julie's group led, the Senior Accountable Officers for Engagement, a couple of things that were mentioned, I thought that as best practices and promising practices really did overlap nicely with this. And 2 that I saw were, for example, assessing and funding training requirements, and then also allowing opportunities for cross-training and stretch assignments. And so these are 2 things that would really play in nicely if you're looking for actions around those particular items. But there's just a lot of things you can do given the differences across agencies, looking at this particular set of examples. And then just one more, if you were looking at supervisor, there are 3 items here, as you can see, and of course they all surround this notion of performance feedback. One thing that we don't capture in the employee viewpoint survey is the frequency of feedback, and I think that's something that's been acknowledged an awful lot. But we do have a number of things here to suggest, discussions about the supervisor, making, to the extent that the employee perceives this as being worthwhile, and what is that going to look like in your agency, and also making sure that you're providing constructive suggestions to improve the job performance, and also that you're actually talking about performance with your employees. And again, the SAO participants suggested utility in a couple of actions that would mostly ensure like meaningful distinctions are made between high and low performance, and also that incentives are provided for exemplary performance. And then another one was to make sure that there are frequent light check-ins between the managers and employees to really foster communication and really beef up that performance feedback. So that's what I have for you in terms of substantive information. I want you to be watching our website probably by the time this airs. All of these will be on our website, the infographic and the companion summary document, 2 nice sort of overview pieces for you. We're also going to have a technical report for anybody who really wants to dive into the details of the research and how it was done and the literature that backs it all up. And then here I have resources for you. If you want to go to our website, that's where everything is housed, all of our reports going back for years. I would look at the 2015 and 2016 particularly for some interesting things. If you are interested in playing with your own data, we have the public release data files. Looking at the Unlocking Federal Talent dashboard, that's available to employees and to leadership, and it looks at engagement scores for different agencies and then also in our inquiries.
Yeah, I would really like to encourage people to go to the unlocktalent.gov site. That does have your own agency data, but it also has some of the reports. It has some videos that are very helpful. I think our folks have found it to be a very helpful resource.
Right, and there's a community of practice page where we have posted a number of technical reports and blogs and resources for folks. I know Carlise was involved in one of the working groups over the last year, and the report that came out of that, and with lots of recommendations and resources and best practices, is posted there as well. Yeah, good site. I wanted to really emphasize many of the drivers that Kim highlighted in her research. The EVS team, her team focuses on the survey and does the research there, and the rest of OPM takes the great information and tries to assist agencies in all of the areas. And so I'm kind of highlighted on the next set of slides some resources that are available to agencies around the various drivers. And just using that as a resource for you. 2 places to go, or one place to go really where you'll get the most set of resources is on www.hru.gov. It started out as a website just for HR professionals, but as it started to grow, everyone realized, wow, this is information that every employee, and particularly every leader, can find information that they need. And so there's a lot on there, and on the slides it refers to that. There's a manager's corner, which really pulls together all the resources for a federal leader, all federal leaders, not just HR leaders. And there's a work-life studio for information on work-life programs. So there's quite a number there.
Right. On the Manager's Corner, as a matter of fact, all of our HUD OCIO learning sessions are housed there.
That's right. That's right, Melanie.
So there's a
Right.
complete library of our sessions, so going back to 2012.
Right, that's right. Yeah, no, and those are extremely valuable resources. Picking up on the driver around performance management, OPM has recently highlighted the importance of that in a memo around guidance on performance management. But what it highlights is that performance management shouldn't be those very artificial check-ins, the mid-year and the end of the year. And sometimes we hear horror stories of where, here, sign this, thanks so much, and that was your performance management session. So we really are trying to highlight the plus part of it, because it's so important for supervisors, managers, executives to check in regularly with employees and really fully engage with their employees to understand their needs, their strengths, provide them feedback immediately. So those constant check-ins will give that immediate feedback, because you don't want to say at the mid-year or at the end of the year, and in October 10th you did such and such. That's not a good coach.
Right.
That's, seize those coaching moments or seize those opportunities to say, great job, because everyone is doing so much and making so many contributions. So the performance feedback is something that we're emphasizing to really go beyond those current artificial structures right now. Collaborative management, another piece, and actually what's interesting is performance feedback touches on all three of those aspects of engagement: the leaders, lead, supervisor, et cetera. So those are extremely important to highlight. Just real quickly from my perspective, and I think Carlise has a lot to contribute around training and development, but merit system principles, just get to know what those are. Those are so important, and there's a very quick 15-minute course on hru.gov on merit system principles. There's those very important, and as Kim pointed out, it's a driver on 2 of the indices of the employee engagement. Training and development is really part of that whole performance feedback cycle, and the cycle includes the monitoring and the feedback, but developing performance and your career is a key aspect. And I know, Carlise, at USDA has seen a lot of improvement over the past few years in your scores on that. And
Yes, we have. In fact, USDA has moved up 5 places in best places to work over the last 2 years. And a big part of that was our focus on some of these same factors. It's really validating to see that we're focusing on the right things. As it turned out, we had identified performance management, training and development, and work life as things that we really felt like was important for us to see improvements in. And we've been setting some goals and tracking our progress. One of the things I can think about in terms of performance management that we've emphasized is the involvement of employees in developing their own standards. That's usually a place when we recommend people start with having employees come up with a draft of the standards that they want to discuss with managers. And when it comes to training and development, we think that that's a really very key, very important. We have all of our managers and supervisors and executives involved in working with employees directly on an annual basis to create individual development plans. That shows the commitment to employees, that they're valued, that they're appreciated, that they have a future in the organization, because we're investing time and effort in developing employees for career growth, for contribution to the team. We also realize that training dollars, just like all of our other dollars, have been shrinking and disappearing. But that's no excuse in terms of investing in training and development. We have a variety of things that we offer to help employees develop with on-the-job experiences. I think Kim mentioned things like we have a detail registry. We share opportunities to go on developmental details at USDA. We participate in the Federal Coaching Network. So not only are we training some of our employees coaching skills, then they are helping others develop. And we also ensure that we participate in rotational programs and mentoring. Mentoring is a very important feature. We ask all of our executives, managers, and supervisors to serve as a mentor. So, yeah.
You know, Julie, if we could go back one slide, I just, one of the things that we're doing that I think is really so important is the relationship building piece. I think that's the really most pivotal part of engagement, because with that comes trust. Once you start building a relationship, you begin to start to trust people. And so when we talk about engagement, I think, and you talked about it, Kim, in the beginning, and I know I've looked at a lot of different definitions of what engagement means, some of the ideas. And I think it's that emotional piece. It's having that emotional attachment. And you don't have that unless you have built a relationship and you trust people. And I think once all of that kind of comes into place, then you can sort of begin to, you'll see, really, I think the EVS scores go up because people have a different commitment to the organization that they're in. Every conversation can't be about the status of a task. They have to be about, the relationships and trying to, build that into your workplace. Because if you don't have that, what separates one place from another? Really nothing.
Right.
Because it's the work. So, I think that's, I didn't want to slide by that because I think that building relationships is really a key piece of the whole engagement strategy.
Right, and I think a piece of that building the relationship is not just knowing your name and what you're doing and what you did over the weekend. It's as much, what do you need? What is it, you as an individual, how do you like to work?
Right.
What do you need? What are your strengths? So if that kind of opportunity comes along, it's like, hey, Melanie would be great for that because that's where she shines. This is a creative project. Let's bring in someone else. So
Right.
understanding not just it's the whole person, understanding the whole
Exactly.
person
That's
in
exactly
creating
right.
that relationship. Yeah, and I don't want to slide past either very quickly the emotional intelligence course that's
Right.
on the website.
Right.
It is a very useful course. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback on it, and I think in leadership development training and development, if people, it's a scenario-based course. So if someone who is not in HR, like I am, I live, breathe, understand emotional intelligence, that construct bothers me, it scares me, they can, in the privacy of their own office or room, understand through this course, practice it a little bit, and then maybe go to an in-class course where they're diving deeper into it.
Right.
So it's a great just baseline, get to understand and try out some of your emotional intelligence skills.
And I love this topic, and later in the year we're going to have a discussion on this topic. But even if people don't want to get into the whole course, if they just were a little bit self-aware, if most people were a little self-aware, most people aren't that self-aware or reflective, even if people were a little bit like that, they could actually be a different person.
Right.
It doesn't take that much, really.
Right.
You don't have to understand Goldman's whole method here with just understanding
Exactly.
a couple key concepts.
Right, and that course, it really focuses on how that brain influences your self-awareness and your self-regulation and the way you interact with individuals. So it is, it's a new course, and we really tried to be state-of-the-art with
That's
the
terrific.
technology and the scenario-based aspect of it.
Well, I know. I found the courses on hru.gov to be so beneficial. Are you going to mention the Maximizing Employee Engagement course?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But no, go ahead and mention it now because you can't for this session you can't certainly not mention it. But
Yeah, I think a year or so ago, Julie's team put out an email that when I saw it, it said there's a new course on hru.gov called Maximizing Employee Engagement. And I went and right on and previewed the course, and I was like, wow, this is a great course because, as Melanie mentioned, not everybody knows what engagement is, especially some of our managers and supervisors that have been on the job for a while. They're hearing this term, employee engagement. They don't really know what it is, and what a wonderful opportunity to try to get everybody on the same page in terms of what is it and how do you do it. And this course, to me, really did that. And not only was it clear and it gave great practical advice, it was customized to the federal environment, and it even had a wonderful resource guide that was connected with the course. So we asked our managers, supervisors, and executives to enroll in that course, and to date, we've had 14,000 of them.
Wow.
We have a lot of people, including people that are team leads. I
Wow.
really think that has helped and it really has contributed to getting everybody on the same page, getting people to know how to do it, understanding why it's important. So thank you, Julie.
Oh, thank you. No, thank you for using it because that's really why we developed it. But you highlight exactly why we embarked on developing the course. It's here as federal leaders and agencies were said, improve employee engagement, and you're like,
What does that mean?
okay, what does that mean?
Right, exactly.
So we really sought to break it down and make it something that everybody could understand, and move forward. Thanks for saying that. The other driver that Kim's message and analysis highlights is that work life is extremely important. So understanding, again, getting back to understanding what an individual needs and how they like to work. And we break down work life, or we view it as 4 major program areas. One is telework, dependent care, so that's child care, and also adult dependent and elder care. Health and wellness, so stress reduction, that's a big piece, and taking care of yourself and your health. And then employee assistance programs. So those are the 4 areas, and there's a number of resources on hru.gov for everyone. There's a work-life studio, as I mentioned, and we're in the process of doing the final review and release of a course that'll be for all employees and all federal leaders to help understand what are the different work-life programs and workplace flexibilities available to you and to you as a manager to help your teams deal with work life. Telework isn't for everybody. Some people don't like to do it, but if it is for something that someone values and the work lends itself to it, perhaps try it in your office. We've seen a huge increase over the years over the use of telework, and certainly here in DC as we embarked on our snow issues, weather issues, many more agencies were able to continue meeting the mission that they are they're supposed to meet, and also sit comfortably in your home while it was snowing around you. So a lot of tools there. And another piece that we're coming out with, telework has an issue around telework, which has been, well, a question that we often get is, how can I manage the performance of people who are virtual, my remote workers or my teleworkers? And the short answer is it's the same as the people in the office.
Sure.
But the reality is we know that there requires extra effort for federal leaders and the employee teleworking to make sure that they're accessible, they're able to understand the norms of the office, of how often they're to communicate and touch base and how they are to communicate. So we're going to be doing a webinar for leaders on how to manage performance of virtual workers later this year, as well as we're in the process of developing a toolkit that agencies can use in their new supervisory training or use in many ways for their federal leaders to help educate leaders on how to, on all the flexibilities that they have. Because honestly, sometimes you don't know what you don't know,
Right.
and an employee needs a service that you're not, or a flexibility that you're not aware of. Just educating is important. And then, honestly, all the things that we've been talking about in drivers are in the hands of leaders. And so the leadership development work that agencies are doing, and I know USDA under Carlisa's leadership has really been doing a concerted effort in this area, tooling our leaders, developing our leaders to be able to handle all of the issues that we're asking them to in terms of performance feedback is so important. And so one thing I want to highlight is the second bullet on the chart is the OPM Supervisory and Managerial Curriculum Framework and Guidance. It's a tool for people who are looking to become leaders, so employees who are going from aspiring leaders and want to progress. They can see what it is that they should focus their development on. And then also for new supervisors and what they need to know the first 3 months, that first year, and then managers as they become more experienced. Certainly a supervisor, that first 3 months, they better understand how to hire and how to the performance feedback system and how to recruit and those HR things that they don't normally focus on. But then also those leadership competencies. And Carlisa's agency has taken the framework and really taken it to has used it very well. So I'll let you explain how you did that.
Yes, one way we use the framework is we have different programs that are designed to develop employees basically from team lead, which is usually a stepping stone into supervision, all the way up to the executive level. So we're developing a pipeline of leaders and some of those can be self-accessed and self-assigned. For example, the team leader, when you don't have to have any special permission to get into that program. We think that that ought to be something that people should be able to enroll in if they are interested. We also have taken that supervisory framework, especially for our entry-level supervisors and our experienced supervisors, and we have built out a program that follows the guidance in that framework. For new supervisors, we have make sure that we cover the merit principles and prohibited personnel practices, and we've also added in ethics because we feel like it's an important part of leadership. Traces back to some of the things we talked about earlier in terms of the factors that are important for leadership. We also include employee engagement now for our new supervisors. We think it's so important. It's a foundational type of development. But that really has been our guide that we used. The framework basically has informed all of those programs.
So I think we just have a couple of minutes, actually a minute or two left, and clearly this is something that we could talk about for hours.
Right.
And I'm thinking now that just the ideas that were presented here have given a lot of thought to our audience. So unfortunately, we're going to have to end it here. And so thank you for being part of our panel. Thank you for being our speakers today. I appreciate it. And of course, thank you, our audience, for being with us. And please join us next time for the next HUD OCIO learning session. And have a wonderful day.